Hey, 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 thanks again for pressing play. Welcome once again to another edition, the Suns Jam Session podcast. Welcome to Nick Richards SZN. The Phoenix Suns have a new center. His name is Nick Richards, and he showed up with the team in Detroit for a game against a gritty Detroit Pistons team. I mean, this is not a pushover team, and the Suns look good. The Suns win. The Suns are above 500. 21-20 are your Phoenix Suns after the victory against the Detroit Pistons on Saturday afternoon. My name is John Voida, managing editor, Bright Side of the Sun, and I want to welcome you to the Suns Jam Session podcast. And I want to welcome for the first time, Matthew, as you know, it's his birthday, so he's out there living his life in Sedona. I don't know if he bought the book Sedonas, and he's out there hiking and booked the Sedonas, but he's not here. So I'm welcoming for the first time to the podcast from AZ Central. Give it up for Dana Scott, ladies and Jamsters. Dana, how you doing?
Great, man. How you feeling?
I'm fantastic. I'm so glad that you get to come on a show where we get to talk about good Suns basketball instead of a lot of the shit we've dealt with this season.
Well, I wanted to come on, and it's been exciting to finally be on. Obviously, we couldn't for reasons we won't get into, but I'll just say politics as usual. And I'm just glad that a new year and a new leaf has been turned, that we can get together and talk Suns and basketball and other fun things, especially Nick Richards. I say, hey, man, Mr. Kingston, Jamaica.
The Kingston, Jamaican Nick Richards.
Yeah, I was going to do that, man. You know, for all you people that used to watch the Cosby Show back in the day, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I appreciate you taking some time and joining me on the show. Should be a fun one. A reminder to everyone who's watching, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. If you're listening to the podcast, subscribe. And let's get into this thing. Let me drop the music. I think I pressed the big win for the Phoenix Suns. They're now 21-20 on the season after defeating the Detroit Pistons in Detroit by a final score of 125-121. So, Dana, how good does it feel to see the Suns have a center presence?
I feel great to the fact that they have a guy who is active around the rim that actually is youthful and gives them that burst of energy off the bench. Obviously, it looks like he will be a starter at some point. Don't know when that will be, but they have projected that he will be that guy. And Nurkic will be pushed down the pecking order to possibly fourth behind Mason Plumlee and also Iguodala. And so that's where we're at, as the Suns are clearly trying to shop Nurkic, and he just is the kid on the backyard kickball game that nobody wants to pick up on their team right now. So,
like, he's not even last picked. He's the one who's like, hey man, we need an ump. Nurk, can you be the ump in our kickball game? Because unfortunately for him, he's making too much money and not putting forth it. He just doesn't fit. And it's funny because we watched this team today, and I'm going to play the Nick Richards drop. We've only played it a couple times on the podcast. Nick Richards.
Vicky. The great Nick Richards. Richard means Dick. That's why he's Vicky.
Vicky, the great Nick Richards.
Suns debut for Nick Richards, and he goes out 30 minutes played, 21 points, 11 rebounds, a double-double, which I made a little money off of. I bet on a 10-plus points, 10-plus rebounds. It was plus 858, so I was rooting him extra hard. A team high, plus 22. But it's interesting to see him play in this system because we're so used to seeing Nurkic and Plumlee and an undersized but skilled Oso Iguodala. So now you have somebody who actually looks like a center out there who can, who's got a little bit of, but he's got a little girth to him, right? Ayton has it all in his ass, whereas with Nick Richards, it's in his upper body, and he's in the right positions, and he's rolling, and he's setting those hard screens, and he just it looked like it worked. And I know how we all feel, Suns fans. It's like when Elfrid Payton first came here all those years ago from Orlando, and we were just like, oh my God, we got a point guard. He looked good in his first couple games, and then everything went downhill. Do you think that what we saw from Nick Richards tonight is sustainable with the Suns, Dana?
Yeah, well, first of all, we'll give a pause to that, all in Aiton's ass, comment. And then second of all, yeah, the thing about Nick Richards is that we talked about this weeks ago, right before New Year's Eve, in a text message, that the best fit in terms what you just said, the word fit, would be Nick Richards to go and trade for a guy who is active around the rim, who is really a rim runner, guys who can attack and basically send shots back, alter shots like he did today, do the tip backs to keep the ball active for extending possessions, and to pull down 11 rebounds and have a balance between his rebounding. He grabbed where I see on the box 4 offensive rebounds and 7 defensive rebounds. And okay, so the Suns, obviously, they have their issues with offensive rebounding. They were out rebounded in the edge 15-13 in that department. That's been a tough go for them lately. Yeah. But they actually beat them total in rebounding the Pistons 50-43. So that's actually a really good plus sign. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna got my own drop for Nick Richards. I'm gonna play something real for you right now. Old school, man. You know the name of the song is by Black Yaruhu?
I don't.
I'm gonna tell you right here. Guess who's coming to dinner?
You always got the best music, man.
Jamaica man. Nick Richards. Sin.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said is true, because the way that he fits into this offense is you and I were texting about it, like you said, around New Year's. We're like, gosh, if we could just get like a Nick Richards type. And it wasn't necessarily like, if you could trade Nurkic for him, that would be a huge plus because of the contract restrictions. Yeah, yes. we wanted him for Nurkic, and because it gives you another archetype to have on the team, but one that's a fit. And like last year, Nurkic was the fit because we didn't have a point guard. You had a playmaking center because he is a better playmaker than Nick Richards. Like, don't expect Nick Richards above the break to try to make any passes or do dribble handoffs. I just don't see that in his repertoire, but that's not what we need from this team anymore. That's what we needed last year. And this year we don't need that. And so seeing how he fits into this team, and the one thing that I saw was some pick and roll where he rolled hard and the Suns actually got him the ball and he finished. Like, how long has it been since we've seen that?
Well, you had Mason Plumlee do it, but obviously Mason, he's a little bit older. He's the oldest Dookie in the NBA at like 12 years, right? Jeez. So, I mean, that's not anything against him. Obviously, he starts, but the thing is that this team, the Suns need to get younger, and that was James Jones' initiative going into the draft, which is why he used the first round and second round picks, trading for Ryan Dunn and getting Oso. Shout out to Desert Vista High School in Phoenix.
Go Mountain Point.
Get a 7-footer, right? Because Mountain Point, you talking about the 2020?
I'm just saying, like, that's their rival, right? My daughter went to Mountain Point.
Yes,
so
that was the championship in 2020 for 6A in Phoenix high school men's boys basketball. But anyway, yeah, that's the thing, is that they needed a guy that really can help them run and get up and be active and high paced in this half court, not just the full court. And Nurkic just doesn't do that. Can't jump over a cinder block because his feet are cinder blocks. That's the thing about him. And it's nothing to take away from his game. Like, look, he would be a good fit in probably a team like maybe even Utah Jazz or something that would kind of, a rebuilder. But the thing is that it, like you said, it fit last year. It doesn't fit this year, as a team needs to get younger, especially with Ryan Dunn and also bringing those bursts of energy. And the thing is that when Matt Ishbia brought Nurkic on and had the press conference about and media day, saying that Nurkic is a better fit going into 2023 Suns media day, that basically was financial. It was a veiled way of saying financial fit. He cost 16.8 million at the time. Now he costs 18 million this year, compared to DeAndre Ayton, who was coming off of his extension, the rookie extension, when the Suns matched him on the rookie sheet, the highest in history, for 33 million at Indiana. And you basically the Suns were paying half of that, for Nurkic when they traded for him. And also Ayton wanted to go. He wanted to leave Phoenix. So that's why they brought him in terms of fit, as of playmaking and financial cost. It wasn't just because of the guy is this, kind of baby Jokic, Alperen Şengün type of player, So I just feel like with the burst of energy, especially at the start of the year, this couldn't come at a better time. Having Nick Richards, like Devin Booker said, he fits seamlessly right into what they need, especially against a team where we saw in December 19th when the Pistons came to Phoenix, Jalen Durant had like 4 dunks within the first 2 minutes, man. It was just like, oh, this is going to be a long night. And Nurkic being out there, you knew that there was no competing against a guy like Jalen Durant, who's one of the best young bigs in the league, who can just give you that burst and catch lobs. And the Suns need a lob threat, and they got him in Nick Richards, and he'll continue to prove that.
Yeah, I think back to that game in December where that's when we first really were exposed. And we all kind of knew. I mean, we all watched the team pretty religiously, and we know what their deficiencies are. But when you go against athletic bigs, we just stand no chance. And I honestly believe that if Nick Richards was playing for the Suns a week ago, we would have beat Atlanta as well, because he can box out. He has it's an elevation in his rebounding that just didn't exist with this team, because Plumlee and Nurkic, they can't, Nurkic is a good rebounder. He has size, so he has the ability to box out, but it's not like he's jumping up to grab boards. He's letting them come to him after he's boxed out effectively. Seeing Nick Richards today, who he didn't get a block shot, did he? Did he get one of those?
No, he had a steal. He didn't get a block. But what you just brought up in terms of letting the ball come to you, he attacks the ball. Yes. And he's a guy that doesn't wait. Like Nurkic is a guy who gets the ball, collects himself. Even when he's alone, he does a pump fake and allows the defense to collapse on him. It's like, dude, just go up with it. You're 7 foot. Nick Richards is a guy who's just reckless abandon, will go after it and attack the rim instead of, I remember this song from Gangstar back in the day, another music reference. He said on The Planet, rest in peace, Guru, I never fake it, just slam it. That's where Nick Richards is.
And that's where and Nurkic thinks before he tries to slam it, and then he doesn't slam it, and that's what drives everyone up a wall.
And then he looks for a call and throws his hand up.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
the defense is running back, or the Suns have to get back on defense, and he's too busy looking off to the side and doing the hang his head thing as he's running down. It's just, from a body language standpoint, it's time for a change, and it's funny to see just how different this team looked with Richards out there. And I'm not. Again, as Suns fans, we tend to overreact, and we should. This, as you mentioned, this is a good Pistons team. This is a team that's been rolling, a team that has a good
7 of 10 they've won. 7 of 10.
Yeah, and we went to their house and we beat them, and they have a good infusion of talent. Obviously, Jaden Ivey just got hurt, so that does hurt some of that youth movement that they have. But they play physical, and to see the Suns play. The problem with the Suns have always been, this isn't just a this year issue. Yeah. This is a history of the fucking franchise issue, is they're always finesse.
Yeah.
They're never a team that's physical. And Richards adds a physical component that is much needed, because as you noted, Jalen Durant didn't have his way tonight like he did when they were in downtown Phoenix. Isaiah Stewart didn't have his way on the interior, because that's how they beat us last time. They beat us up on the interior, and once we kind of started collapsing, then the 3 started falling for them. And tonight, we were taking them out of their game. We were imposing our will, and that's something that we haven't seen very often from Phoenix, and it's nice to see that tonight. The other thing that I saw from Nick Richards was just him attempting to block shots. I forgot that guys on our team can jump that high to block a shot. You have to shoot over him. It's been a while since I've seen that. And I'll ask you this question before I move on to other players and talk about their performances. But do you think that having Nick Richards on this team, when he does begin to start, which could be as early as Monday against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Do you think he has the ability to kind of open up Tyus Jones's game, giving the Suns an aspect of the pick and roll? Because, now Tyus Jones, who's been it's been rough for him recently. Now, obviously, Beal's not playing, but this game, 4 points, but the 10 assists. And it kind of opened up his playmaking a little bit, having that type of archetype on the floor with him. What do you think about the Tyus Jones, Nick Richards relationship? Because in a perfect world, if that's working, that's when like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are standing on the wings, and that's just scary.
Yeah, well, in the post game, with the discussion between Book and Amanda Flugrass, shout out to my homegirl Amanda there. He had mentioned how the screening was really great from Nick, and that really helped the other guys get open. So I can see that happening. And let's be real, Nick Richards is going to have to start against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Monday. They're going up against Jared Allen. I mean, one of the best rim protectors and rim runners in the league. You're going to have to go up against, especially, and, the thing is too, is, when you got a guy like him and Mobley, is he healthy offhand?
I think so.
Okay, so there you go. I mean, you're going to have a guy who maybe even too big lineup, to have like Oso, and move Kevin to the 3 and have Nick at the 5. I mean, and have Ryan come off the bench as that boost. I mean, we'll just see how that goes. But when you have a guy, like you said, imposing your will, the Suns weren't doing that in Atlanta. Okongwu had 22 and 20. I mean, and then Mark Williams was looking like, Shaq, in the first half when the Charlotte Hornets came to town, last week, and early this week. It was crazy. He had 22 and 13 in the first half, and Nick Richards was playing behind him.
Yeah.
So there's the thing, is that the Suns are going to need to form their identity right now.
Bingo.
In January, when teams form their identities, to show we are not to be played with inside, and teams are just going to continue to attack them when they know that they can out rebound them on the offensive glass, and just continue to extend possessions. Because I saw that kind of early in the game against the Pistons, where the Pistons were starting to kind of gain some rhythm by extending possessions. And then after a while, they stopped doing that because the Suns and Nick Richards was just like, no, this ain't happening now that I'm here. And so he basically was like I played, guess who's coming to dinner? You know what I'm saying? Like, you weren't going to do that against the Suns anymore after he got in the middle, because this dude was just like, he's that type that reminds me of just like, no smiles, just big shoulders, total grit, physicality, doesn't say much, needs to just do his job and, open other guys up. A guy you don't want to face in a box out drill. I don't know if you've ever been to a box out drill in basketball practice, but there's some guys that you are hoping to not match up in line against, and Nick Richards is one of those guys.
Yeah, that was the scouting report on him coming over. He is just kind of a lunch pail guy, the blue collar worker, if you will. And it's a perfect compliment for our team that's definitely has its flaws relative to egos. And that's going to be, from a roster construction standpoint, the Suns are taking a step in the right direction. There's still a lot of work to be done because we know all the intangibles that have plagued the Suns throughout the season. Getting loose with the ball, like we saw against the Washington Wizards. Just not being as focused as they need to be. Sometimes when they're playing an opponent who has an injury report that has 5+ players on it, the Suns kind of come in with this air of confidence that's false, because a wounded dog is scary, and you have to respect that. And so, again, this is just one aspect of the Suns from a roster construction standpoint, meeting a need, playing the long game right. James Jones signing Josh Okogie in the offseason to that 2-year, $16 million deal in order to put them in a situation where they shave some payroll, which they did. Essentially $20 million is what they paid, is what they saved, but also meeting the need of the team at the time in which the transaction needed to be made. And Nick Richards has come in and done that. But we have to give our flowers to Devin Booker for the way he played in his home state of Michigan.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is
Big Dick Booker.
I do apologize. We're not a super serious podcast over here. Devin Booker, please.
Just saying.
Devin Booker, 42 minutes played in this game. He was 11 of 22 from the field, only 1 of 5 from beyond the arc, but 12 of 13 from the free throw line. Ended with 35 points, 3 assists, 5 rebounds. And is that 4 consecutive games now in which he's gone over the 5 consecutive games in which, yeah, that's right. He's gone over the 30-point mark. What's going on with Devin Booker? Like, what happened? How has he turned this corner?
Well, shout out to Kellen Elson for pointing this out a couple weeks ago that in December, Devin Booker tends to go through a minor slump as the Suns do. So it's kind of the Suns are reflective of the past 3 years of Devin Booker's slump, right? The Suns didn't play well, lost 7 of 10, I think, or something like that in December, or no, 6 of 7 at some point, but
yeah,
at least. But the thing is that Booker, he wasn't really shooting very great, but January is when he tends to turn the corner and shoots at a higher percentage. And now we're seeing that manifest. So I think that with Booker also in front of his hometown crowd, it's kind of like Kyler Murray said this a couple of years ago to me when I was covering the Cardinals. He's just like, I asked him, what is it like when you can go on the road in 2021, right? This season when they went 7-1, and then kind of tanked from there. And then he played against Dallas, and he said, I can't lose in my hometown.
Yeah.
And I asked, like, how can you do so well on the road and you don't win at home? And especially in Dallas, where you're from. Like, he's like, yeah, I get what you mean. It's just different. And so Devin, with all his family and friends there, or even in New Orleans, where he's closest to where he went to high school at Moss Point in Mississippi. Yep. He has a lot of family in New Orleans, which is close by. He can't lose in New Orleans. He just explodes. And so Devin today just exploded. And he just can't lose to his home state team with so many people watching. I think there's a different mentality when you are comfortable playing on the court that you grew up watching, knowing the people are watching and such. So that's part of it. But also, I just think that with him and Kevin, we see a different dynamic now that Beal has gone to the bench.
Yes.
Beal has been he hasn't been with the team for the past 2 games. Before then, he had been relegated to the bench, 6 games prior? Or was it 5?
I think it's 5.
5. Okay, so
since the 6th, that was the first game in which he was relegated to the bench.
Right, and then they won 4 or 5, and so Kevin and Devin it was their show. They just didn't really need to do anything to defer or wait. It was their show, and I think that's part of where they're kind of just seeing this skyrocket. And then Nick to kind of just be the serviceable center. It just shows where before the Nick Richards trade, the Suns were 28th in offensive rebounding, second chance points, and 20th in second chance points allowed, right? So let's look at the stat box with Durant. So Durant had a slow start tonight at 1 of 9, and then he ended up being 13 of 27. So he finished basically
12 of 18.
12 of 18.
Damn.
And Booker was 50% at 11 of 22. Richards, 7 of 8. And, grabbing 11 boards, a game high, and then having and let's look at where they are in terms of the defensive boards. Defensive boards, the Suns won 37 to 28 second chance points. They were tied with the Pistons 17 to 17. The tough inside paint points were 60 to 60. Yeah, I mean, that's to give up 60 points in the paint is too much, but at least the Suns matched it. And there were 22 lead changes and 12 ties. So that just shows how they weren't willing to give up, and the effort was there on the second time around when they got those balls. And the Suns, namely Booker and Kevin, thrived on those second possessions, or the extended possessions.
What's impressive, as you go through a lot of the statistics, is one you didn't mention is the fact that the Suns were 7 of 25 from beyond the arc. They shot 28% from deep, and 7 made threes is their least amount of made threes this season.
Yeah, wow. And they kind of kept the turnovers down. The turnovers
That was
were
key.
10, and they gave up 13 points over them, and the Pistons gave up 9 and 11 points off of those. So that was key because the game before then, against the Wizards, they gave up 29 points off of 16 turnovers.
Yeah,
And
that was
5 of them came in the fourth quarter against Washington Wizards, the worst team in the league. Okay, the team that will never win another game for the rest of the time, like Tony Kornheiser said a couple weeks ago, which was funny. But yeah, I mean, that just shows where the effort is in closing out the teams.
I love that you say that, because it's so true, because effort is not always quantifiable in a box score. But one of the ways that you can determine it is on the fringes how a team executes. And we saw tonight, one thing's not working, but because the Suns were themselves again tonight. And one thing I got to give credit to, and I've done it a couple times on the podcast, and I've written a couple articles on Bright Side of the Sun about it, is how Mike Budenholzer has adjusted to his roster, where he brought in his system that was very 3-point heavy, and their 3-point rate was close to 50% at the beginning of the year. And it's continued to kind of take a dip because he realizes, like, listen, I got Devin Booker. I've got Kevin Wayne Durant.
Who the heck are you?
I'm Kevin Durant. You know who I am. Y'all know who I am.
Did anybody see a sniper? Did anybody see anything?
I'm one of the best players to ever play the game.
And as you mentioned, Dana, Kevin had a rough start, but ends up with 36 points to lead all scores. Him and Booker combined for 71 points in this. And as you mentioned, the high efficiency, even though he was unbelievably inefficient to begin, he still ended with a 48.1% shooting percentage, 7 total rebounds, 5 assists. And in that third quarter, he had 21 points on 8 of 11 shooting and hitting his only 3. I mean, he was just insane, and it's because the Suns are starting to operate in the spaces in which they're familiar. This was always been a good offensive team. It's been the defense that's been so bad. So by bringing in Nick Richards and then complementing Booker and Kevin Durant by taking Bradley Beal, putting him on the bench or injured, and letting them cook in the areas they're meant to cook in, great things start to happen. And it's funny because seeing them playing against the Pistons, who I've mentioned before, this is a physical team, and seeing the Suns have the ability to play physical and play finesse in the same game, it's just something I haven't seen in some time. And we're going to really have a good understanding of, is this just an aberration? Is this just Devin Booker and Kevin Durant being super excited because they're walking across the street to Ford Field to see the Lions and the Commanders play tonight? So they're giddy inside like a kid on Christmas. So they go out there and they perform in this manner? Or is this something that when we play Cleveland on Monday that is transferable? What do you think?
Well, I think there is a little bit of a honeymoon phase going on right now because of the trade and seeing where Nick is, but also give credit to Kevin on the defensive end too. Let's look at his defensive numbers, right? 3 blocks, high 3 blocks tonight, right? And he had 2 steals. So yeah, that's tied
5 stocks.
Yeah. And he had 7 rebounds, all defensive. Right. So all those stops you get, and that's what helped him become a plus 12. Right.
Yep.
So, and he just kept it down to 2 turnovers, where turnovers
that's
are
key.
keys, right.
That's key for KD.
So the efficiency was there, but it's really in the defensive end that he needs to get some credit for, to do this in 38 minutes. Right. He only sat for basically 4 minutes, and Booker played for 42. So those guys,
they were amped up.
They were amped up. And yeah, I mean, it could be the football thing, I guess, if you want to throw that in. But I just think that there is a little bit of a honeymoon phase. There's really no pressure to I mean, there is some pressure, obviously, because you're at 500 and you're trying to get back above that at 10th and 11th in the West. And you're basically playing to get into a play-in spot right now. I think that there is something where you feel like there is some sort of edge about them, and especially Kevin, and his name being thrown around. This is a guy, as you know all too well, listens to everything and is sensitive to everything that you say about him or to him. So I think there's a little bit where every athlete feels a little bit motivated by the room and social milieu, if you will, and they will take that and bottle it up and put it into where they know they are back against the wall. His name has been in trade talks. not trade talks, trade speculation, I should say,
Yeah.
about the Suns getting their picks back from the Rockets. And should he go to the Rockets? I'm sure he's hearing a lot of that right now. So, his value is not going to decrease. It's just where he's just like, look, this is where I am the dude. I am going to stay. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to will ourselves to win. I am not going to lose to my hometown team, the DC, like, Thursday. I am not losing in Detroit. We're going to put and stack some wins together because a year ago in January, the Suns turned the corner and thrived. And that's where they are right now.
And they need the same thing to happen this year. And it's so paramount that it happens. And again, with this win, it really helps because the Suns entering tonight, I think they were 3 games out of the 5th seed. And with this win right here, they're in the 10th seed. And now, they're 2 games out of the 6th seed and 2.5 out of the 5th seed. And 4 games out of the 4th seed, but a good run.
Yeah.
And they're on a good run right now. Outside of that loss to Atlanta, if you don't have that, that's 7 games in a row. Like, they're on a good run right now. They're making adjustments to the roster as it occurs. And we're seeing growth across the board. We're seeing like Ryan Dunn, for example. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 So Ryan Dunn in this one, kind of a quiet 12-8, 4 offensive rebounds, 4 defensive rebounds. Didn't get in foul trouble like he did last time he played against this team, but he's showing again that he has that defensive acumen. He's playing as a member of the starting unit. His numbers are starting to get really disgusting in a good way if you're a Suns fan, because if you take a look at the way that he's played just in the last 10 games entering tonight, playing as it pertains to other rookies, he's 2nd in points, 2nd in field goal percentage, 4th in 3-point shooting, 2nd in true shooting percentage, 3rd in rebounds per game, 2nd in blocks, 3rd in plus minus, and 2nd in net rating. And that's against other rookies, but that's who the Suns took at 28th. And he's going out there, and we're talking about compliments to the roster, right? James Jones is trying to complement what he has in Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. And Nick Richards is a compliment. And now you have Ryan Dunn has been a compliment. And seeing him pick up Cade full court was something that was awesome, like, isn't that great to see? When's the last time we had people pick up guys full court? And you got Ryan Dunn out there hustling in that capacity. It's just great to see.
I love the Rudy element to Ryan Dunn. Like, I could do a coach that type of guy, right? The Sean Haston guy.
Go Irish. Can't wait for Monday, man.
Yeah, man. And do it on Martin Luther King's birthday.
Yes,
Martin
please.
Freeman, please. Okay?
Yes, facts.
Do it on Martin Luther King's birthday for the first Black coach to ever win the FBS title. Please.
That'd be fantastic.
With that out the way. Ryan Dunn, something about him. He grabbed 8 boards tonight. And 12 points. He started on 4 or 5 shooting. Last game against Washington, he had his career high 18 with 11 rebounds. The first double-double of the season, career highs, shot 8 of 12. And he shot 50% in Atlanta for 14 points. So I've said this a couple weeks ago, and nobody has to believe me, but I think that he can vie for all rookie first-team honors if the Suns get to, I would say, at least 45 wins. If they can get to 45 wins, because winning impacts your placement on any team or any end-of-year honors that you get, then I could see Ryan Dunn, if he continues to play his way, he could be all rookie first team, because this is a rookie class that doesn't have superstars. It's a lot of role players, right? But Ryan Dunn's showing signs that he can be a future. And I wrote this a couple weeks ago about Oso Ighodaro and Ryan Dunn, that even though the Suns don't have much draft capital left, at least they have Ryan Dunn to look forward to as a starter. Basically superseding a 1/3 of the big 3 in Brad Beal to take the starting spot, right? And if that shows right there, it's like they believe in this kid. They believe in him to come in, be that 3-point shooter, and a guy who can pick up anybody, LeBron, Harden. He can pick up Steph Curry, and he can pick up, Cade Cunningham, who's emerging as a superstar in his own right this season, right? With career highs of, 24 and close to 10. Fourth in this league in assists right now. So for him to do that, Ryan Dunn is just like that dude that Suns fans could look forward to in the near future and long term to complement a guy like Nick Richards, who the Suns will likely want to extend if he stays healthy and keeps playing like he did today against the Pistons, and Oso, who comes in and does great work, off the ball. And on the ball with the Oso floater, as I call it, off the screens, and then to do things like just to basically attack and just bang on dudes, like just being a slasher. That's the type of stuff that you want to see from a 6'7" swingman. That really there's nobody besides, I would say, maybe the serviceable guys like Ricochet. Yeah, Alexander Sarr looked good the other night. It was 16 and 9. But name another group of rookies that are destined for first team at this moment on their all rookie team. Can you?
Stephon Castle, from San Antonio.
Castle,
he's been playing fantastic.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I'll shout out to my UConn dudes.
Yep. So but outside of that, you're 100% right, and I think that when we talk about things that the Suns were missing last year, youth was a primary culprit that nobody talks about. The team didn't have any youth. And don't get me wrong, like this team, this version of the Suns team is still the oldest team in the league. But you have that shot in the arm that the rookies bring. And when you have a team that has fourth quarter struggles like the team did last year, it's primarily because you have dog tired legs. And as the season progresses, they just get heavier and heavier. But you see, like against Washington, where late in the game, Ryan Dunn had to come out because his wrist hurt a little bit. And he went off to the side, and like a play later, he's coming back in. He's like, yeah, I'm fine now. It's like that's what youth is. Youth is speedy recovery and having that energy. And that shot in the arm around this veteran group is somewhat contagious. And when you have Oso doing the same thing, because Oso is somebody who's highly underrated. No one really talks about him outside of Phoenix other than Keith Smith. He's a guy who like absolutely loves him, but outside of that, like nobody gives him his flowers, and that's fine. But he's a highly serviceable, highly skilled player. So to have both those guys come in, it's been a shot of energy in the arm for the team, both from a personality standpoint, they mesh well, but also in giving them, the junkyard dog thing, like Nick Richards kind of brings. Ryan Dunn reminds me a little bit of the Matrix when he was here, because Sean Marion just did all the dirty work. Yep. And that's what Ryan Dunn's kind of doing. He's just doing a lot of the dirty work and grabbing those rebounds and doing the tip-ins and coming on the offensive boards and shaking things up. And that's what the Suns have needed last year. And it's what we've needed throughout this season. We've had our issues with inconsistency, but we have been consistent, again, albeit against bad competition. We always have to, everything that's going on with the Suns right now, you have to have that little asterisk afterwards stating that we're playing against the Hornets twice and the Washington Wizards, and we got the Nets, and, but you have to beat these teams. And again, Detroit's not the Detroit of the past. And Ryan Dunn, seeing the way that he was picking up that full court pressure on Cade, who, as you mentioned, is absolutely having a fantastic year. Could have used one more 3-pointer from him tonight just to kind of, I needed a parlay where I had like a parlay with like Booker 25 points, Nick Richards 6 rebounds, and Cade 2 threes. He had a 3 right off the bat, and then I think he ended up going like 1 for 7 from deep. I'm like, gosh darn it. And that's why I don't like to bet on things.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Me neither. But let me tell you, I can't bet on much because I got a kid and I got a second one on the way. But at the same time, the thing is that there's something to be said about culture, guys. You guys, a team always needs those culture standard bearers, right? Like that bubble team, who was the culture standard bearer?
Oh man, you had Campaign, you had Mikal Bridges,
Kelly Oubre.
Kelly Oubre. Well, he didn't go to the bubble because he was too afraid of getting hurt, but he had the meniscus injury earlier in the season. Yes, but he was part of that shift.
He started the Valley Boys thing.
He did, and then they traded him.
Right. He started. They traded him for Chris Paul to the Oklahoma City Thunder in that package for Ty Jerome, him, and Ricky Rubio. And then they brought in the draft picks, right? I believe they as well as they put in the draft picks as well as for Chris Paul. So Chris Paul after that was the culture standard bearer as well as the Twins. Okay, for the team fun, right? Yeah, they brought the whole city of Phoenix rallied around the Twins, which were Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. They were basically the cultural standard bearers for fun And Chris Paul was the guy who was basically getting in DeAndre Ayton's face to make him play better. And everybody was feeding off Chris Paul's energy when he was healthy, right? If you look at those past teams that Kevin Durant was on in OKC when they had him, Harden, and Westbrook, the culture standard bearer was Russell Westbrook, right? And then over in Golden State, when that team, that super team, as you want to people call it, the culture standard bearer, or the grit guy was Draymond Green, and it still is, right?
Yep.
Brooklyn, you didn't really have that guy,
Nope.
right? Phoenix, after you traded away Chris Paul and you traded away the Twins, you don't really have that guy.
Yeah,
So
that's very true.
they're looking for somebody. Not only identity has to do with style of play, but also it also has to do with the guy who can basically bring a sense of identity to move forward for the locker room that they're going to rally around. Because I always believe, and I know this from my playing days, your best player does not, or your most talented scorer doesn't have to be your leader in the locker room. And I asked that to Monty Williams a couple of years ago about DeAndre Ayton. Like, do you feel like now that he's getting into his veteran status that he should be a more vocal leader? And he said, like, if that's not his personality, he doesn't have to be. And clearly he wasn't. He was more the anchor of the defense and will tell you what to do and where to go. But that just wasn't in his personality to do that. Now, a lot of people question if that's in Kevin Durant's personality. He said in his boardroom interview with his business partner and agent, Rich Kleiman, like, my personality is just not that guy to rah-rah and stuff. I lead in other ways. And Devin Booker, I've seen him hold guys accountable, but he's definitely not the guy that's like a Jay Crowder who will bring the grit as he did in that Phoenix Suns 2021 finals run, right? So that's
the question off of that.
Yeah.
Can Bradley Beal be that guy? And or how about this? Why isn't Bradley Beal that guy? And can Jimmy Butler be that guy?
I question this because Jimmy Butler, people say that he will come in and start flipping things over. It's not going to take one guy to just totally turn a culture around, right? I just mentioned in that 2021 finals run, it took three guys: Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, right? Just you had the balance of the guy who was the veteran that everybody looked up to as the leader, the point guard, who can basically direct everything from the way he sees the floor to the two twins, right? The youth, the fun, and the guys who are the guy who is basically the best defensive guy on an island, who was second in defensive player of the year, and Mikal Bridges at 2022 and that 64 win year that the Suns had. Cam Johnson, he wasn't the most rah-rah guy, but there's something about his energy, and even including DeAndre Ayton as a third twin, something about the togetherness, the sense of synergy of playing together. That is where the Suns thrived to win that many games. And then I think when it comes to the guys like Jimmy Butler, he could do that for you, but he's speculated to say that he was willing to be a third fiddle behind Booker and Durant. But given Jimmy Butler's history from where he was at with the Bulls, basically forcing his way out, and the
same thing in Minnesota.
Same thing in Minnesota. Then we saw it in Philly with the Ben Simmons thing and Joel Embiid, and he went to Miami where he was basically the alpha, right? And they went to the finals in his first year in Miami. And then now that ship is sailing where he doesn't want to be third fiddle to the rising young stars, Tyler Hero's their best scorer, and Bam Adebayo, who's a three-time All-Star and an Olympian. And Butler's a past Olympian too, but it's like, dude, you're 35. Every player usually in the history of this league, as they get older, they have to shift to role player role. They have to accept being role players. And I think Jimmy, he's willing to accept that to go to Phoenix, but something about his history doesn't prove that to me. That will last long. I think that will maybe be the honeymoon phase that he's willing to be the third fiddle, but something shows in his history. It's just like there's going to be some sort of axe to grind down the line. And if you get to the second apron stuff and the financials, that will impact him with the Suns even more with that $52 million option that he'll definitely take
Oh,
after
yeah.
June 30th. And that will freeze their assets for the first round picks for the next, 7 years when they get their own picks back as of 2031, if they don't trade that first round pick for him, and into 2032, where they might not be able to use it, because they'll be past the second apron too many years per the CBA. So I don't think it's a good move for them to get Jimmy Butler. He's not the guy to fix it. I think, if anything, it's going to hamper the Suns down the line. And I'm not saying to blow it up. I'm just saying I don't think he's the piece. I think they should do what they can to get their picks back, trade Bull, get some second rounders back.
Yes, I'm with you 100% there. It's even if it's trading Monte Morris or Tyus Jones, even, if you can identify a team that has a need at backup point guard and you can get a Monte Morris doesn't get a ton of play. We've realized that having a starting lineup that has Tyus, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker doesn't work because defensively they're too small. So you've adjusted your rotations. So if you don't need Monte Morris, and the Hawks do because their backup point guard depth is depleted, and they want to give up a second round pick, sweet. We could use a few more of those in the draft stable. But let's hand out some hardware real quick.
Jam Star of the Game.
All right, Jamsters, a reminder, if you're watching along live, please subscribe, rate, and review. And if you're listening later, just tap the person on the shoulder next to you while you're sitting on the bus going to work tomorrow and tell them who you think the Jam Star of the Game is. Dana, you're the guest here. Who's your Jam Star of the Game?
I say, hey, man, Nick Richards. It's an easy one, man. It's an easy one. Nick Richards.
I agree with you there. Taking a look, Kiko in the chat says the duo of KD and Big Dick Booker. Understandable. I mean, they went for 71. Armani mode for Aussie Suns fans. That's who they're giving it to. Viagra book from Felix. We have an interesting crowd of people if you've never watched this before. Nick Pogo Stick Richards. Love it. And newcomer Nick from Kip as well. So before we get out of here, just real quick, I want to talk a little bit about the next game for the Phoenix Suns. They're going to Cleveland, 1:30 start on Martin Luther King Day. Going to be a tough game for sure because obviously, oops.
I got you.
There we go.
Real quick, I just want to reiterate why it's Nick, because that 13-5 run that they had in the third quarter to take the lead back after the Pistons started out, with that run to take the lead. Nick Richards had 2 straight possessions where he dunked the ball and then he had a layup as well. So that dunk basically was like the turning point. Was just like, okay, we're going to get back in front. We're going to make this happen where we're surging and I'm going to make a statement. So the statement dunks are always important.
And it's nice to have. I mean, I facetiously tweeted out that Nick Richards now has more dunks in this game than Nurkic had the entire season. Then it's like, don't fact check me on that, but it's what it felt like, because to your point, they were statement important dunks. And the way that he ran baseline and got that pass from KD, I mean, that's a highlight that I'm happy to have somebody like a Nick Richards. Honeymoon phase, we'll see how it goes in the future. And again, we'll see on Monday when they play the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is a team that, by all accounts, 34-6. I didn't see Cleveland being this good. Did you?
Well, they just got blown out by the Thunder too, as well. And that's the thing, is that they're going to have that feeling of a bounce back, get back type of approach to Monday, because it's Martin Luther King Day, and they basically are like, okay, we are going to be. Is on national TV. Let's see.
I don't know if it is. It should be. Is it part of like the run? Because they only typically do like 5 games on Martin Luther King Day, and it's kind of like Christmas, right? They run a bunch of games kind of all day long.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not, but at the same time, the thing is that they're basically in a mode where it's just like, we just got destroyed by the Thunder. They were destroyed.
Yeah, they're going to take it out on Phoenix.
And they're going to take it out on Phoenix, and so Phoenix is going to have to be ready because they're looking for a 3rd straight win. To string some wins together. I know that Phoenix has won, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 8. So they're going to want to stick to them like, you're not going to come in here and do us like the Thunder did in OKC. And I think that they're both in the same position, not record wise, obviously, but I think that the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to want to make a statement by coming out hard. And Donovan Mitchell is one that thrives in those moments. We've seen that time over time. He's played well against Phoenix over years. And so that's another thing. Darius Garland versus Tyus Jones. That's going to be an interesting matchup to see. And I definitely am looking forward to seeing Nick Richards versus Jared Allen. That's people think that, when big men, like traditional big men, go up against each other, it's boring. It's not sexy as it used to be in the 80s or so. But to me, like, I love that type of stuff. I was excited for the Heat versus Nuggets a couple of years ago. Bam Adebayo versus Nikola Jokic. People were like, this is going to be a boring series, low rating. I'm like, no, man. You're seeing 2-point centers go against each other, and they're battling in the post. You want to see that type of stuff. You want to see grit down in the block, guys going head-to-head. The clash of, old school stuff like Ewing versus Shaq, not to say
Olajuwon
versus
technique. I love seeing big man technique on the block. Like, isn't that fun to watch? I know, I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I still am. I cried myself to sleep. My the night before my 8th grade graduation, because that was Game 7 of Knicks versus Rockets. In Game 7, the result of that for all you basketball junkies like myself. And I grew up rooting for the Knicks, being from the tri-state area in Connecticut and New York City. But I definitely love the prospects of Jared Allen versus Nick Richards come Monday.
Well, it's going to be a fun game. Make sure everybody, you tune in here to Suns Jam Session. We'll be going live right after that game. Let's see, if it's at 1:30, game will end around 3, 4 o'clock. Perfect. That'll kill some of my days. I'm just nervously pacing, waiting for the Notre Dame Ohio State national championship game. So, Dana, I truly appreciate you taking some time, coming, hanging out with us. Let all of our listeners and watchers know where they can follow you and your work.
I appreciate it. You can find me on azcentral.com under Suns. I also cover all the Suns games away and home on a live blog, giving quarter-to-quarter updates. And you can find me on X at IAM_DANASCOTT. That's at IAM_Dana Scott, same as on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, again, appreciate you. I mean, we talk at games all the time. It's fun to actually get you here, and it's not with us working and covering games. We're trying to have quick conversations about how we can get Montrezl Harrell here, but truly appreciate you coming on. And Jamsters, thank you for hanging out, and go home and love your